Hey everybody, so I had a lot of interest with doing a tutorial on these watch bands since they're kind of the new big thing and is kind of getting hot with everybody. This is just the way that I found that works for them. For me, you don't have to do a lot of adjustments between the two different watch sizes. If you guys have any improvements on these, it would be fantastic. I'd love to hear them, see if I can't make them a little bit better myself. So to start out, I kind of have a PDF for you guys. Hopefully I'll be able to attach it to where you guys can see both of them. So you've got your cover, you've got a materials sheet, you have a template, and then you have 2 pages of instruction. I would probably suggest watching the video along with doing these because I may not explain some things as well as I think I am on paper versus hopefully I can get them done okay, explaining wise on the video. To start out with, we'll go over our materials sheet. It's stuff that everyone has. It's easy. I honestly, when I started doing these, I was using scrap stuff from another project that I had been doing. So to start out with, you're gonna want like a 1 to 2 ounce lining leather. That's what we will cut our liners out of. This is what's going to go against your skin, so you want it to be soft and comfortable. 1 to 2 ounce I found works really well, but you're going to need to be able to make it withstand being folded because this is where your wear is going to be. I found pigskin's a little too thin and it stretches a little bit too much, so this is just I think a random lining leather I picked up at Springfield, so it's worked great for me so far. You're going to want some probably 3 to 4 ounce tooling leather for your body. So you'll have 2 pieces of that. Like I said, I was using a piece of scrap that I had and found out that the weight worked great for it. You're going to want your edge rub and your edge dye if you are going to dye your edges. For my edge rub, I use Ron's from Maker's Leather Supply. It's fantastic. I use it on everything. About out. I need to order some more. Let's see. For this project, I'm not going to dye the edges. She told me when she ordered she kind of liked the natural colors, so we're going to leave it the way that it is after I get it edged. For your hardware, you're going to need a 22 millimeter buckle and then either your 38 or your 42 millimeter adapters. I order all of these from Buckle Guy. He is the most local person I found, even if they're probably not produced here. They're decently priced and they ship fast. After an order, I can usually get them 3 to 4 days. So his will actually come in a big roll. Like you'll have a ton of these together on one sheet so you can cut them. For me, when I start these and I get them going, I found these little bags at the jewelry section at Walmart. These are fantastic to put all of your components and all your parts in. I put the client's name and their watch size on it. And then, so I have everything for one client in one bag in a basket that I have. That way I can just work down my list and I can just grab everything and it's all right there. And I don't have to sort stuff out as I'm going. So these buckles will come in 3 pieces. So make sure you have all 3 pieces when you get them, or obviously it's not going to work real well for you. So you'll have your tongue, you'll have your bar here, and then you will have your body. As for the adapters go, they come in pairs. I think they're around about $7 a pair. I think the buckles are about 90 cents. So, if you choose to, you can order them in any color you need. The black, the rose gold, the gold, I think, and then the silver. Personally, I order silver. I don't want to jack with getting people's colors, trying to make sure I'm not ordering the wrong size by accident, having to return, and all of that jazz. So I use just silver. It matches everybody fine. Everybody's happy with it. As for your other tools, you're going to want all your stamping tools to do your design on these little guys. I don't love doing them, but if you figure out a good system kind of like this, they can be a bread and butter item for you because everyone is going to these smartwatches. You're gonna want a knife, which can be your round knife. It can be an X-Acto knife, trim knife, anything that you like to use. These are my favorite. I use an X-Acto knife and I put a skiving blade in it, or just a flat blade. It works great because these blades are flexible. I can go around the corners like I need to, and then I can, they're just easy to use. You're gonna need a skiving knife. I just use these safety skivers from Tandy. I don't have a lot of stuff that I usually have to skive down, so these work perfect for what I need them for. You're gonna need some clips. I found these little guys at Walmart in like where you have the ratchet straps and your different hardware stuff. These are awesome. I probably have 40 of them and I use them all the time. I use them probably every day that I'm in here. They're strong. They don't go anywhere. They're great for holding anything really you need to. They're not huge. So they're great for these little watch bands when we glue and we're going to let it set and dry. You will need either your hand stitching supplies or a sewing machine. My sewing machine is just a little home hand crank Singer machine. It's great for these little guys. I'm using a number 69 thread. You're gonna need a ruler. I've been playing with this the whole time. These little metal ones are my favorite from Walmart. I think you get them in the office section. They're good and long, and then you're not going to, with your knives or anything, you're not going to take a chunk out of them like you would like a wooden or a plastic one. You're going to need your sander. For me, you can use sandpaper on these. For me, I use a little cordless Dremel. I use it on everything. It works great for me. You can get either a 60 grit drum or 120 grit. Whatever you're using, you can kind of determine what you need it for. You're going to need your edgers. For me, I use both a Ron's edger. It is a number 3. Again, came from Maker's Leather Supply. Holler at Aaron. He can get you hooked up. And then I also use a sharp turn edger from Berry King. It's also a number 3. I use this on most of my small stuff because I can either push or pull. You have a round hole here, so you can, like I said, you have a dual cutting edge. You can either push or pull. Like I said, it's a number 3. You're going to need your canvas for your edges, your wax for your edges if you use that, and then a pen or a marker or something of that nature because we're going to have to make a couple small marks on these. Since we're past the materials list here, we will go to the template. You have 4 pieces that you're going to need to cut out for a single band. Actually 5 when you count the keeper. You're going to have lining pieces and then you're going to have your body pieces. For the liner, like I said, 1 to 2 ounce. It's here. Make sure you cut 1 of each. To preserve my templates, I usually put them on a manila envelope or a manila file folder. They're a little bit stiffer, or you can use cardstock or something like that. That way I get a little more use out of it than just a piece of paper. I've actually bought plexiglass. I think I found a 12x12 sheet on Amazon for $10 that I'll be making a more permanent template out of. I just haven't got around to it yet. You have your body pieces. Like I said, 3 to 4 ounce. You're going to need to cut 1 of each. You're going to need to get them tooled and everything else. Like I said, a lot of times I will prep my liners before I prep my, before I do my tooling, just because I work on a big batch at a time. You're also going to need to cut a keeper, 3 to 4 millimeters wide, probably 3 inches or so long, about 3.5 inches. We're going to make our own keeper for these. I haven't figured out how to sew them yet. You can probably use a staple like you would in a belt keeper. I just don't have one of those staplers, and so I use glue. We're going to go ahead and start going down our list here of our instructions. After you get everything cut out, I would advise go ahead, do all your tooling, get it all done, completely done, sealed, ready to go, and set them aside. So that one's ready, and so you guys will be able to see the entire process. I'm going to tilt you guys down here a little bit, and so hopefully you can at least see a little bit, even if I cut my head off like little. So what we're going to do, after you have all of this cut out, when you tool your body, you want to make sure that you either glue it to a piece of plexiglass or put a piece of tape behind it. You do not want these guys to stretch because your liner is cut to your template or cut to your body. You don't want to have to do a lot of trimming or anything else once you go to sew these guys on. Once you're, like I said, once you're done, set these aside. We'll go ahead and go to start prepping hardware. Keep them close because we're going to need to make a couple marks. That's actually one of the first things that we're going to do. So I have my short liner, which is going to be, this is the liner that you're going to attach a piece of an adapter and a buckle to. So your short piece is always what you're going to attach to. I'm going to take my body. So obviously it's a lot shorter because I'm going to have to loop these sides. What I'm going to do is I'm going to center that on there. I'm going to take just my pin and I'm going to make a couple little marks so that I know where this leather is going to lay when I fold these over to make my loops. We're going to do the same thing with our big liner and then our big body. A lot of the times it's not going to fit right on the money on your ends here. Usually mine's kind of look like this until I get them completely finished. So you're going to also make a mark on where you're going to have that leather lay. So when you're done with that, you should have 3 marks on your liners. When we go to fold these, you don't want your fold to be right on this mark. So we are not going to actually fold at this mark. That is where, again, like I said, our body is going to lay. So you're actually going to back that off a little bit. For me, I know this is really hard to see. Here is my mark. I like to kind of divide that in half. So you want this flap to lay under your body when we get it done. Okay? So that it's nice, it's seamless, and then you don't have something to irritate your skin, and you don't have a big weird lump there. So, take this off and show y'all here. This is what it's going to end up looking like. Ignore my band, I haven't made another keeper for myself yet. You want it to be smooth, and then you want it to be seamless on your other side as well. So, like I said, your buckles come in 3 pieces. I've already put this one together. These are spring loaded, so it's really easy to do it. You don't need any special tools or anything. So what I will do is, my cutting pad here. Like for this, I'm going to be using my Weldwood because it's really thin and it's easy to use. You're going to grab your adapters. You've got to make sure that you're putting these on the correct way. As you can see, you have 3 little black dots here, and you only have 2 on this back side. In order for this to go into the watch correctly, these need to be up. So this needs to be the top of your adapter. On these liners, we are working on the flesh side. The smooth side, like I said, is going to be up against your skin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my adapter, if I can get it in my hands here, and I'm going to slide it down onto my liner. I usually slide it way down just so that it's on there and I don't have to jack with it when I'm trying to put glue on it and I'm not getting it everywhere. I'm not getting glue all over my adapter. Here's our little mark. So what I'm going to do is you want that to divide almost halfway between the mark and the edge. Okay, so when we fold that down, our black pieces are going to be up. So we're just going to slide that back down so we don't get glue all over it. Take a little bit of that Weldwood and just get that good and coated. You don't want it just dripping because you want it to dry decently quickly. A lot of the times I'll have to take my fingers and kind of clean it up a little bit. So I only put it on one side. I don't have to put it on here also because it's too hard to try to figure out where that's going to lay. So I'm going to slide up almost to my glue line, and then I'm going to fold it over. This is where our little clips are going to come in handy. You need probably at least 8 of them per band. So I'll just clip on one side, and then you will clip on the other, just so that you know it's getting a good hold. So we have those up, we've got it clipped, and we've got it glued. For the buckle, we're gonna have to cut a little notch in there. I haven't ever seen a bag punch that's been this tiny. That's not saying a whole lot since I don't have a ton of tools. For this, I'm gonna use just a regular pointed X-Acto because I want it to be a small notch and I don't want any extra cuts anywhere. So again, I'm gonna fold over almost to half of what where my mark is. I usually just hold it down while I make a little cut. You can kind of eyeball it, see where it's in the middle. Like I said, you don't want these cuts very big. I'm going maybe 2 millimeters up on each side. So now that it's folded, I don't have to worry about making a straight line, and I've cut into my fold. I know that this is really hard to see. I don't have a great setup for videos, so. So now you have your slits in there, and then we're going to come in and cut those edges out so that we can pull that out, and then we've got a slot for our buckle to sit. So now I've got a decent little slot for my buckle. Again, make sure you're folding towards the flesh side. So we're gonna put our buckle in here. Through our little slot. And then I'm gonna even it up on each side. I wanna make sure my my slot comes down to the end of my buckle on each side. I kind of will just hold that open like that so that I can glue here, and then I will put more clips on the bottom. So we'll take a little bit more glue. Like I said before, you don't need a crap ton of glue. You don't want it dripping everywhere because again, you want it to dry decently quickly. That brush is kind of big for that little bitty area, so sometimes you kind of have to spread it with your fingers. So again, we're going to fold that down. It's not going to stay down by itself. So again, you're going to have to clip those with our little clips. So you've got your small band done. This is going to be against your skin here. This right here will be where your body is going to go. So we can set this aside for right now because we still have to attach our adapter to our bigger piece. So on my bigger piece, it's the same thing. Make sure that those black spots are up. Make sure that the bottom two, so you have black, silver, black, is going to be down towards the bottom because that's how that Apple Watch band or that Apple Watch is going to attach. So again, we'll slide it on there, pull it down, put on a little bit of our glue. Then we're gonna slide up almost to our glue line and then fold over again. A couple more clips here so that we make sure that that's getting a good seal on it. So again, you can kind of set this off to the side and let it dry a little bit. So for our keeper, we're gonna make those now. So I have my small little piece. The way that I kind of do this is I will take my larger body and just fold this around so I can kind of see where or how big it needs to be. You don't want it super tight over this because it's gonna be a booger to get over your buckle, and it's gonna be really hard to get your other piece in there when this loops around. So what I like to do is I like to make sure that I at least have a little bit of daylight in between there so that it holds where it's supposed to, but it's not so tight that you can't function. So I will pull that off and you can kind of see where those pieces need to be, which honestly, I will make sure that these are centered. So I'm gonna kind of push that over and center it. And now I'm going to take my pen again and I'm going to make a couple little marks just so I know where to skive down from and then where I'm going to need to apply glue later to be able to glue this together. So we have our little marks, and this is where your skiving knife is going to come in handy. You want these to be flush. You don't want a piece here rubbing against your skin and just irritating the crap out of you, because then you're not going to want to wear the band, and then your clients will have paid for nothing because they're going to have a band that's uncomfortable that they're not going to want to wear. So I'm going to take this down and I'm going to pull it. More towards the end will be a feather edge, but you just want a nice gradual thinning. Usually it don't take more than one pass. So there you can kind of see, it's not very easy to see, sorry guys, that we've kind of skived it down a little bit, that it's going to be more comfortable. You want it to be essentially seamless when you glue this down, again, so that it's more comfortable. So you may have some fuzzies at the end that you'll need to bring, that you'll need to take off a little bit. I don't edge these, they're too small. They're just, you can probably edge them. I don't, I probably should, just to make sure I'm giving my clients the best product. So, like I said, we have our little marks, which you can barely see that one. We're going to apply glue just to one side. Again, you're not going to need to do it on both sides, just because it'd be way too much glue, and then you're going to end up gluing a clip to your keeper. So, I will take my glue again. You don't want a ton on there. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to take it from one of our little marks all the way to the end. Again, I will take and wipe excess off. You have your mark on the outside as well. I'm going to take, and an easy way to do it is I just will start my fold at that glue line. Then I'm going to fold it into it, and then make sure you have a good connection or seal on there. Again, this is going to be a place for your clips. I use 2. I'm going to do a clip on one side like this, and then you still have your little tail there. And then I will clip from the opposite side. You want to make sure stuff's lined up, because once this glue dries, you're kind of SOL on being able to move anything. So there's our little keeper. It is drying. Usually these kind of need to dry overnight. And really, I should be running a stitch through these. I haven't quite figured it out yet, but it shouldn't be too hard between just a small awl and a needle, just to make sure that they don't come apart. So again, set this aside. We're gonna go back to our, I usually let these dry a little bit longer, but I didn't have a piece that was, I didn't have some that were already ready. So I'm gonna take those off, and I mean, they've got a pretty good, they're not sticking up anymore. They've got a pretty good seal. We're also gonna take our skiving knife for this again. As you can see, there is a little lip here. Again, you don't want that, you don't want your client to be able to feel a lump, and then you want your body to be able to sit pretty flush with these. So I will take my knife and I just skive down just enough to where that little lip is off of there. And then you can pull it off. That way it's a little bit more flush, and you don't have a lump to worry about. So I will skive that down a little bit and just peel those off of there. So this guy is ready to put your body on. We're gonna go ahead and real quick skive down your bigger piece also, so that again you have a good place to work. You don't want to skive too high, because if you don't put your band up high enough or your body up high enough, that weird little skiving mark is going to show. So we'll pull those off of there. And now we are ready to glue on our body. For this, I will put glue on both the liner and on the body. So there's my liners ready to go, and then my bodies are ready to go. You don't want your glue to show over your bodies, and so honestly, at that skive mark is where I will stop that glue because it looks not finished or kind of bad, and it looks like you're sloppy. I've kind of had that happen with a couple, and I've remade them because I didn't like the way they looked. So we've got glue on that. We'll let that dry a little bit. You want this to kind of get tacky. Sometimes on these liners it won't. But usually on the bodies it will. So usually by the time you're done putting glue on everything, you'll be ready to go ahead and put it on there because each part's kind of dried. So I'm just doing a pretty even, good layer. You want this to stick. You don't want it to move while you're trying to sew these. Apologize, my phone keeps going off. So what we're gonna do now, so this is nice and sticky. You're gonna know where the top of your design is. For me, it's gonna be the flower is going to be the top. So make sure you orient the top with the top of your band, which is going to be your adapter. You don't want something to accidentally be upside down, which again, I've done that. So you're gonna wanna make sure, sorry, this is kind of hard to see, that this is gonna be lined up pretty well. You're gonna want a decent spacing with everything. You don't want one piece to be higher than the other because then, like I said, you're gonna show that skive line. So that is on there. So you can kind of see where this is, where we've looped that around, and then you've got even spacing here and here. So now that that's on there, you can probably tap that with a flat hammer. I don't have one that tiny, so I just kind of press it and just make sure that it's on there. Same thing with your big body. You're gonna come up against that skive line. You don't want that to show, so you want to be a little above that, and then you're just going to smooth it on there really nice. Sometimes you kind of have to spread out this liner. It bunches up sometimes, and so I kind of have to spread it and stretch it to make sure that it's covering most of that watch band, because there are going to be some pieces that, like right there, I'm gonna have to trim out, which I do it sometimes with my knife. If it's not a ton, then I will do it with my sander. So for me, I have a sewing machine for these, so I'm going to walk over here real quick. It's just at the edge of my table. Sorry, my chair isn't fairly squeaky. Go ahead and move you guys over here as well so that you can kind of see what I'm doing. Like I said, it's just a little bitty dude. Make sure that you have a border with these, because for me, I'm going to sew right in this little bitty border. That way I don't have to worry about when I go to, sorry guys. So when I have to go to sand down the edges and things like that, I'm not going to hit a stitch and end up ruining my whole stitch job and have to redo it. We'll get this little guy going here. I always start at the top because you're going to want to back stitch over that. Like I said, it's a little hand crank machine, so we're going back to the old days here. And you're going to sew, again, right in that border because you're going to have enough room to be able to play if you need to either trim down the edges or when you're going to go ahead and sand them, which you can use a piece of sandpaper. I'm just so used to using that Dremel that I use it on everything. Ignore the dog walking around here. She can't seem to find a spot to lay down. Being able to glue these as well as sewing them, I haven't had anyone come back and tell me that stitches come loose or something's popped off or anything like that. I've kind of been playing with the idea of putting some conchos on these or something of that nature, just to give it a little extra something for some of my clients that like something a little more flashy. I have one that I'm actually getting ready to figure out how to do fringe on, which will be a challenge in itself. So we'll get this big piece sewn here, and then we will get this finished up to be able to send out to our customer. Sewing in this border also allows you to have a really good stitch guide to go with. Like I said, a lot of guys have a better design than I do, which I've liked some a lot more than mine, but this is a pretty good way to get started at least. And if you need to tweak it later, feel free to whatever's going to work to you. There's a lot of guys that will do a wider spot and then we'll taper. We'll taper down when they get towards, you know, your buckle or your adapter or anything like that, which honestly look pretty awesome. I just haven't figured it out yet. Doing the bands all one size allows me to not have to do a ton of adjusting when it comes to the two different sizes. Okay, so we are done with these. We will go back over here. Hopefully I don't drop y'all again. You're gonna want some kind of thread zapper. I just use a regular lighter just because I haven't ordered a thread zapper yet. Get you guys adjusted here, sorry. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and trim off our extra, making sure your stitch is in the middle of your material. Go ahead and get that down. And go ahead and melt those. Okay, now that that step's done, it's gonna be time to trim these if you need to trim them. So like here, I have a little bit of extra. Sorry, scared me. My stool pops it back there and I forget about it. Go ahead and trim that out. And on the back, just making sure that we're not going to have anything. I have a couple places I need to trim here. You're just going to kind of have to eyeball it and make sure that everything's kind of staying in the right shape, making sure you're not going to have a weird wonky line, you know, to where it doesn't look like it's doing a little shimmy or something here. Because you really don't want to have to sand up all that much. We'll get this done here, which everything looks pretty decent on that one. This guy's looking pretty good, so let's go ahead and I'll take my sander. Apologize if it's a little loud. It's usually not too bad. The only thing about the Dremel is you really need to wear a mask, which I'm currently out of at the moment, and you have little particles flying everywhere. But, I mean, overall, it's served its purpose for me because, obviously, I'm in a spare bedroom of my house. I don't have room for big industrial machines. Like, my tabletop is full at the moment. So, you want a good, seamless sand there. Now that I have stuff all over me. Okay. So we're sanded, we're ready to edge. Like I said, you can use sandpaper if you want. Like Dremel's just easier for me. So I'm gonna take my sharp edge or my sharp curve, and I'm just going to pull those sides off right there. Then I'm gonna do the same thing on the back. Pull those little edges off so I've got a good piece to be able to edge down. I kind of skipped a step. I didn't realize I did. I kind of have started doing it a little bit differently. So I'm still getting used to doing this. These edges right here, you really probably should edge and rub down before you sew on here. That way you don't have to worry about it anymore, because it's kind of a booger when you, this one is my Ron's edger. It's kind of a booger when you've got to do it on here. Got like leather particles in my nose. I'll start sneezing here in a minute. Okay. So we're gonna pull that off of there, back to my sharp edge. You wanna make sure, you don't really have a lot of wiggle room with these. You have a really small border. So you're gonna wanna really pay attention and make sure that you're not accidentally skiving out pieces of your stitch that we've already done, because obviously that's not gonna fly and you're gonna have to redo this thing, which means redoing it from scratch, because if you have too small of a border, you're kind of screwed and you'll have to do it again, because it's not gonna stay, you're not gonna get a pretty stitch, and it's just gonna look really sloppy. So now that those are done, put it back over there, I'm gonna take my Ron's, and I just use a cotton dauber. You can probably, for some of these, I will use a Q-tip. I actually meant to get those out. There they are. These little travel packs are great for just a couple here in the shop. So for these inside pieces right here is where I'm going to use the Q-tip. I don't want to get weird discolorations on my liner. So like I said, you really should do it beforehand, because it kind of turns into a fight when you're trying to do it. So that's good. You can take and pull these down a little bit so that you can just get your little edge that you need. Okay, same thing with this. You can kind of pull it down, and you can kind of get it pulled down a little bit. Take my liner here, or my piece of canvas, and I'm just gonna rub the top of that, and it gives you a decent burnish. And then for the rest of it, I will take my dauber. You don't need a crap ton of this stuff. I kind of will press it against the side so that I get all the excess off. We're just gonna go down through there, and you're gonna go ahead and rub this out like you would any other piece, really. Sometimes they get a little fishy to hang on to, but they're not awful. So I'll take my canvas again, and we'll go ahead and rub that down so that you get a really pretty burnish on there, and that your edges are nice and uniform. Okay, that one is good. So let's go ahead and do our small piece here. Get that burnish down. And like I said, you don't want a ton of that Ron's because you don't want this super wet. So those are good. I use a 50-50 paraffin beeswax mix. You can tell I've run this on quite a few things. I just melt it down and mix it on the stove, and then I pour it into, I'll fill up like an ice cube tray, but I only fill each pocket like halfway. So I'll take that and go ahead and just rub on my edges again. As kind of a little extra sealant. It helps, to me, it helps lay the fibers of this this liner down, because sometimes you can't get it with a regular edge rub. Same thing with this. That way it's all on there and I don't have to worry about it later. I'm gonna get those where you burnish down. Okay. Now that those are good to go, you're gonna grab your keeper and we're gonna work it down over the buckle side. If you're gonna dye an edge or dye your background dark or anything else, I would suggest dip dyeing that keeper so that it matches and you don't have this really white keeper on a really dark, pretty band. For me, I personally have not found a better way to get these on here. I'm sure there is, but I haven't found it. So I will take my buckle, make sure it's closed, and you'll take your keeper and you'll just slide it right over that buckle. So your keeper is there and you're good to go with that. So for me, I will just put them together like so. I'll just slide it on the back side of that keeper. So now I have a nice pretty little package. They'll be able to pull it out and snap it right onto their watch. So like I said, again, these jewelry bags are fantastic. I can just drop those in there with a couple of cards, and then I pad them in a bubble mailer and then send them on to their new house to get used and loved. Thank you guys for bearing with me. Please, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to message me or ask me. Like I said, it's not a perfect system or process, but at least it works a little bit. It's a good thing to at least get you started on them. And I would love to hear any improvements. So again, thanks guys for bearing with me, and hopefully I will be able to make another one of these in the future.